I'm Brittany. This is Chuaning. And welcome to Gaywatch, where we watch and read gay things. We continue reading Volume 9 of Erha today. And we will be picking up on page 143 for chapter 279, which is called I Surrender My Life to a Snowy Night. We read for a couple of hours. We take a break around halfway through, and we usually get through about 40, these days more like 40 to 45 pages. There's our links to trigger warnings down in the description box, should you need them. And there's also an evergreen link to the public Gaywatch Discord in case you need to, like, I don't know, scream about your feelings about danmei with other people, or other queer books as well, about other queer books too. All right, so previously on Erha, we learned a few more things about what's really going on. Namely, that Moran volunteered as tribute to take on the flower because Shimei wanted to plant the flower in Chuaning. And that mysterious scene with a meditating Chuaning and Shimei and a comb actually was a little bit more complicated. So that's where we're at. We still don't know what really the master plan of Huabinan really is. And Moran doesn't know anything about anything in regards to anything. So still thinks he's a piece of shit. The dumb husky moniker really evolves as this series goes on. So, once again, we're on page 143 for chapter 279, which is called I Surrender My Life to a Snowy Night. We're basically at the very beginning of the Xisheng Peak arc. Why it's called Xisheng Peak, we don't really know yet, but the implications aren't great. The implications are rarely great when it comes to Meat Bun. Deep in Nanping Valley, in the middle of the night, fresh snow fell quietly outside a small cabin. Moran's condition had only worsened over the last few days. Even when Chuaning had used the flower spirit sacrifice technique to treat his wound, it showed little improvement. At some point that afternoon, Moran had woken from his heavy slumber, but his awareness was hazy. When he saw Chuaning through half-lidded eyes, he began to cry. He said he was sorry, then begged Chuaning not to go, repeating the same plea over and over, until he was sobbing too hard to speak. When he slept again, he dreamed, flitting through those tumultuous years of his life. He dreamed of when Shui Jingyang had first found him, and when he'd lost Chuaning for those 5 long years. The only memories that never appeared in his dreams were those stolen by the flower of eightfold sorrows. He couldn't dream of his sacrifice, his act of protection, or his innocence. All of it was out of reach. Thanks for the recap there, Meat Bun. Moran. Chuaning brought a bowl of freshly cooked congee to his bedside. He'd made it using the skills he'd recalled from the past life. Though it wasn't especially good, it was edible, at the very least. Chuaning sat down next to the bed and laid a hand on Moran's forehead. He was burning up. Chuaning called his name, trying to rouse him, waiting and waiting, as the congee became lukewarm, then cold. This wouldn't do, Chuaning thought. He set the congee in a pot of water to keep it warm. He didn't know when Moran would wake, but whenever he did, he'd be able to eat something right away. I made it with chicken stock, the way you like, Chu Wanning said softly. He'd been channeling spiritual energy into Mo Run's heart without cease to keep it beating, but Mo Run still wouldn't wake. If he couldn't even remain conscious like this, then if that spiritual energy was cut off, he might never open his eyes again. He'd be beyond saving. Chu Wanning couldn't accept that. How could he possibly accept it? Mo Run was still alive. He was still breathing, no matter how shallowly. From dawn till dusk, Chu Wanning waited by his side. As he watched his chest rising and falling, he felt there was still hope. Everything could still return to normal. They still had time. One night, Mo Run had blearily stirred, waking to a darkened room. Mo Run stared blankly at the unlit candle, his parched lips opening and closing around words Chu Wanning couldn't make out. At this, Chu Wanning became frantic. He grabbed Mo Run's hand and asked, "What are you trying to say?" "Light." "What?" "Light. I want a light." Mo Run's eyes fixed upon the candle. He was powerless to set a flame as tears rolled down his cheeks. "I want there to be light." Visual metaphors aside. For a moment, time folded back on itself. Not long after he'd first become Chu Wanning's disciple, Mo Run had fallen ill. His slight form had lain curled up in his bed, muzzy and dazed. When Chu Wanning had come to check on him, Mo Run had whimpered for his mother. Chu Wanning had taken a seat by the bed and, unsure how to comfort him, hesitantly reached out to touch Mo Run's burning forehead. That scrawny boy had cried and said, "It's dark. Everything is so dark. Mom, I want to go home." On that night, Chu Wanning had been the one to light the candle. The bright flame threw the room into sharp relief and illuminated Chu Wanning's face. As though roused by the candle's small warmth, the feverish boy's eyes had opened, revealing a pair of dark, misty irises. "She's in." Chu Wanning had nodded and tucked the blankets more securely around him. "Mo Run, I've lit the candle." His low, measured voice had soothed his disciple. "Don't be afraid." Years later, a lonely candle flared to life once more. "So you mean to say that when Mo Run was arguably at his lowest, Chu Wanning lit a candle, and now, when Mo Run is arguably... Okay. Sure." The rundown cabin was saturated with its warm light, which chased away the cold and the boundless dark. Chu Wanning smoothed a lock of hair behind Mo Run's ear. "Mo Run, I've lit the candle," he said hoarsely. He wanted to continue, to say, "Don't be afraid," but the words caught in his throat. He couldn't speak them aloud. He blinked back his tears, yet as he leaned forward to press his forehead to Mo Run's, the sob escaped him. "I've lit the candle. So please wake up, okay? Pay attention to me, okay?" Did I mention that I had gotten some lemonade from my good friend Mike? I still have it. I am drinking it, actually. The flame flickered like a fretful dream, weeping its waxen tears. Fuck you and the description you wrote in on, okay? The candle burned, bright and clear, until it finally burned itself out. Okay, at this point, she's either putting a visual metaphor into everything, or I'm seeing visual metaphors in everything. And really, I don't know which one it is. Sorry. Sorry, excuse me. I just need to pin a comment real quick. Later, the sky began to brighten, and the horizon paled outside the window like the white belly of a fish. Moran's eyes had not opened again. Those days of his youth, when a single candle could rouse him from his slumber, were gone, never to return. 3 more nights passed this way. Chuaning spent each day at Moran's bedside, looking after him and keeping him company. He poured spiritual energy into him and spoke to him of the things he'd forgotten. On this night, the snow had stopped by sunset. The sun was a red disk outside the window, its dying light spilling over the land. A squirrel leapt from the snow-covered branches, rustling the white pear tree and filling the air with sparkling iridescence. The generous light of the setting sun shone onto the man on the bed, its rosy glow imparting a semblance of life to his wan cheeks. Beneath delicate lids, his pupils shifted. In the last moments before twilight descended, he slowly opened his eyes. After so many days unconscious in the throes of illness, Moran was awake at last. His eyes roved the room, confused and vacant, until he caught sight of Chuaning, slumped over at his bedside in an exhausted doze. Startled, Moran mumbled hoarsely, "Shizin." As he lay beneath the blankets, his mind slowly cleared. A vague recollection of the things Chuaning had told him again and again as he drifted between waking and sleep slowly took shape in his mind. A cup of wine at the Mid-Autumn Festival, a high-tongue embroidered handkerchief, and the flower of eightfold sorrows that he'd taken in Chuaning's stead in the Red Lotus Pavilion. Was he dreaming? Maybe he wished too fervently for salvation, so he dreamed of Chuaning telling him those tales. Maybe he wished too passionately to turn back, so he dreamed that Chuaning forgave him. He turned his face and raised a hand, wanting to touch that man fast asleep at his side. But he pulled his hand back before his fingers made contact. If he touched him, he worried this dream might fall apart. He was still at Tianyin Pavilion. He was still kneeling on the platform of repentance, a raucous sea of people below him. He knelt alone in front of those multitudes, and all their faces became blurry, became the faces of all those who died by his hand, shrieking and cackling and demanding his life. No one wanted him. No one would save him. He was too shameless, too ambitious, too insane. He'd hallucinated that Chuaning had come. In the agony of having his heart carved out, he dreamed that he saw the last bright flame of his life. Might need a second bottle for this stream. He bottles his lemonade, you know? It's a very common way to package lemonade. I don't know if you know. The perfectly innocent lemonade from my friend Mike. He's very dedicated. This was all fake. No one had cut his chains. No one had taken him in their arms. No one had flown to him on the wind. No one had brought him home. His lashes trembled. He stared at Chuaning's sleeping visage, eyes brimming with tears. He didn't dare blink, willing his eyes to stay open until his vision blurred, until his tears finally fell. Chuaning's silhouette shattered into 1,000 motes of light. Panicked, he blinked and looked at that wonderful dream again. The dream was still there. Mo-Run lay back wearily, lashes wet, throat stinging, tears trickling from the corners of his eyes. His chest hurt terribly, and he could feel blood oozing from the wound. He didn't want to take Chu Wan-ning from his hard-earned slumber, so he bit his lip and wept in silence. He had awoken, but he had no illusions about the state his body was in. This was temporary, a flash of lucidity before the end. This was also the last bit of mercy the heavens were bestowing upon him. He, Mo Yu, had lived almost all of his days under a cloud of anxiety, and had lost his mind for an entire lifetime. His hands were laved in blood, and his name was synonymous with evil, though he hadn't been convicted of his crimes until the very end. This turn of events bewildered him, made him apprehensive. Was he lucky or unlucky? He'd spent 2 lifetimes consumed by hardship and absurdity. That was unlucky. But what remained of his days could be peaceful. That was lucky. I can't go on a whole existential trip right now, but Blue, I'm going to need you to write that one down. Yet how many days would he have? 1? Maybe 2? Whatever it was, they'd be happy days he'd paid for with his life, the kind of peace he'd never known. When he heard Chu Wan-ning stirring, he hastily wiped his tears. He didn't want his Shizun to see that he'd been crying. Mo-Run turned to gaze at the man beside the bed, watching as his lashes quivered, as his phoenix eyes fluttered open, and as his gaze fixed upon him. Outside the window, the crimson sun slipped below the horizon, and the northern dipper rose. Chu Wan-ning whispered, "Mo-Run?" His voice was low and mellifluous, like a seedling pushing through rich soil, or a frozen stream cracking in the spring. I swear to God, Meat Bun, you are on thin fucking ice with this description. It was like wine on a little clay stove brought to a simmer for the 3rd time, soft tendrils of steam curling up to warm one's heart. It was the most wonderful, unforgettable sound in the world. Mo-Run stilled for a moment, then smiled. "Shizin, I'm awake." The evening was clear, without wind or snow. The rest of his life stretched out before him, as far as the eye could see. Tonight, nestled in the valley of Nanping Mountain, the easiest and kindest period of Mo-Run's 2 lifetimes had arrived. Now that he was awake, he could see the joy and sorrow on Chu Wan-ning's face. Now that he was awake, he sat up and leaned back against the wall. He'd do whatever Chu Wan-ning told him. He'd listen to whatever Chu Wan-ning wanted to say about their experiences and misunderstandings. To him, nothing was important anymore. He simply wanted to hold on to this a little longer. Just a little bit longer. "Well, let me look at the wound again." No looking. Grinning, Mo-Run caught Chu Wan-ning's hand in his own and pressed a soft kiss to the back of it. "I'm fine." My whole ass stomach just tightened. You need to be holding my hand. After insisting a few more times, only to be rebuffed, realization seemed to dawn on Chu Wan-ning. He stared at Mo-Run, the color gradually draining from his face. Forcing himself to stay calm, Mo-Run said gently, "I'm fine, really." Chu Wan-ning didn't reply. After a moment he rose and walked over to the stove. The fire had nearly burned out. All Mo-Run could see of Chu Wan-ning was his back as he worked slowly at the hearth. The fire flared back to life, flooding the cabin with light and heat. Chu Wan-ning didn't turn. He continued poking at the firewood with the tongs long past the point of necessity. "The kanji," Chu Wan-ning rasped at last. I kept the kanji warm so you could have some when you woke up. Mo-run was silent for a beat, then looked down and laughed. It's been so long since I've had Wan-ning's kanji. After you left in the past life, I never got to taste it again. I didn't do a good job, said Chu Wan-ning. I still don't know how to make it. It's probably edible, but barely. The last syllable seemed to waver, as though he might not be able to continue. After a long pause, he said slowly, I'll get you a bowl. Okay. The room was very warm. As the sky darkened, snow flurries drifted down in fits and starts. Mo-run held the bowl of kanji in both hands. After every few cautious sips, he looked up at Chu Wan-ning. Then he dipped his head for a few more before sneaking another glance. What's wrong? Chu Wan-ning asked. Is something bothering you? No, Mo-run said quietly. I just want to look at you some more. I have read so much smut for you guys. But as I like to say, it's the fluff that'll kill you. Chu Wan-ning didn't say anything. He took the fish that had been roasting over the fire and cut into it with a silver dagger. It was a freshwater fish, meltingly tender, but it still contained bones. Chu Wan-ning carefully picked every one of them out and divided the meat into small pieces. Mo-run used to fuss over him whenever they ate together. Now it was his turn to return the favor. He passed the neatly filleted fish to Mo-run. Eat while it's hot. Mo-run ate obediently. When this man was sitting up in bed, cocooned in blankets, he didn't look so tall and strong. In the orange glow of the firelight, his face looked very young. It suddenly occurred to Chu Wan-ning that Mo-run, whether as Taishan-jun or as Mo-zongxue, was a full decade younger than him, yet he'd experienced so much suffering. Mo-run finished all the kanji, but he left the most tender piece of fish untouched. As he was about to offer it to Chu Wan-ning, he froze. Shizun, are you all right? Chu Wan-ning ducked his head, his eyes burning. He took a moment to master himself before replying flatly, It's nothing. Just caught a bit of a chill. Afraid he would lose his composure entirely if he sat any longer, he surged to his feet. I'm going to check on things outside. You should rest when you're done eating. Once your wounds heal, I'll take you back to Xishang Peak. Both of them knew his apparent improvement was a temporary respite, that all this warmth would soon fade. But still they spoke of tomorrow. They spoke of the future. As though they wished to take all the decades to come and cram them into one evening, to live through every great turn of the stars across the sky in one single snowy night. After Chu Wan-ning left, Mo-run rose and took a seat in front of the fire. Eventually he loosened his collar and looked down at the fearsome hole in his chest. Then he stared off into space, feeling empty. The cottony snow fell faster as night settled over Nanping Mountain. Mo-run didn't know when his condition would deteriorate and his life would reach its appointed end. He leaned against the mattress, watching the snow drift down, his ears filled with the whistling of the wind. His life seemed just like that wind, sweeping the past away in its wake. In both his previous and present lifetimes, some clever mind had always been plotting in the background, planning their next move. Though one had wished to protect him while the other had wished to destroy him, both his Shizun and Shimei had pursued their own agendas. Though neither ultimately succeeded for reasons beyond their control, both had acted with intention. Mo-run wasn't like them. He was just a dog, and a dead stupid one at that. I don't know why it's taken me until volume 9 to establish this, but we simply have to be drinking at every dog reference. If that's not the equivalent of a heaven official's blessing He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I don't know what is. He had no mind for strategy and no clue how to play a beautiful game of chess. He only knew how to faithfully guard his beloved. Even if his skin was flayed open and stripped down to bone, he would stubbornly stand his ground in front of this man, refusing to leave. Kindly, one could say he was brave. Bluntly, he was dumb. Oh, Jesus, God in heaven. All right. This dumb dog of a man propped his elbows on the windowsill, lashes trembling. His eyes snagged on a familiar figure beneath a flowering plum tree in the distance. Chu Wanning hadn't been checking the surroundings at all. It had only been an excuse. The tree was far away and the snow was heavy. Mo Run couldn't see his face. He could only make out a hazy outline, alone and unmoving within the vast snowstorm. What was he thinking about? Was he cold? Shizun. Lost in his thoughts amidst the snow, Chu Wanning turned around. Against the backdrop of black sky and swirling white snow, he saw a young man in dark robes with a blanket over his head. At some point, unbeknownst to Chu Wanning, he must have walked up behind him. "Why are you out here like this?" Chu Wanning blurted in alarm. "What are you doing? Go back in—" Before he could finish, Chu Wanning found himself engulfed in heat. Mo Run had lifted the blanket over both their heads, pulling Chu Wanning into the shelter of its darkness and warmth. There's art. Oh, Jesus, I'm acting like I can actually see myself in that one. Listen, okay? I'm not well. Can I angle this properly? I'm not well. I'm not. It's not. I'm. Not going well up in here. It's really not. I need it to be firmly established that Mo Run wasn't remembering a dream about the flower, please. They stood under the old plum tree beneath the heavy blanket, musty from years of disuse. No matter how fast the snow fell or how hard the wind blew, it had nothing to do with them. In the soft darkness, Mo Run folded Chu Wanning into his arms. "Don't worry. Even though I can't remember all the things Shizun told me about, if—" He hesitated. He kissed Chu Wanning's brow, then said quietly, "If I had to do it all over again, I'd choose the exact same thing." I'm going to rip myself apart at an subatomic level. I'm going to split my own atoms. First of all, he wakes up and he's like, "Oh yeah, basically the best parts of waking up, gotta be a dream. Obviously, I'm a piece of shit. We all know this. But now he's like, well, since I don't really remember everything, so what doesn't he remember? Okay, what does he remember? What doesn't he remember? What does he remember but thinks is a dream? I need him to sit down with a spreadsheet and explain it to me so I know what page we're on." Faced with Chu Wanning's silence, Mo Run felt around for his ice-cold hand. "Besides, Shizun, you shouldn't feel bad. What Shimei said makes a lot of sense. The flower of eightfold sorrows only took impulses I already had, the thoughts I could never say out loud, and encouraged me to act on them. That's all." I would not be surprised if I turned the page and we saw Mo Run's rationale of, so therefore, I'm still the biggest piece of shit that has ever been, that has ever come into creation on this planet. Mo Run interlaced their fingers and pressed their foreheads together. My heart was always full of resentment. It's just that I couldn't do anything about it when I was little. Slaughtering all of Rifeng's sect, I'd thought about it before. Same with ruling the world. It sounds silly, but when I was 5 or 6, hiding in that grubby little shed, I used to imagine that someday I'd hold the world in the palm of my hand, with armies at my beck and call. These were all my own ideas. No one forced them on me. You are a starving, traumatized 5-year-old. I'm gonna need Shizun to clock the fuck in. Because absolutely the goddamn hell not. No. No. Makes sense. I get, unfortunately, why Mo Run is taking this psychological path. I understand. Because one of the hardest things to do for a brain that is convinced that it's not worth anything is to confront the fact that it's worth something. It'll take all kinds of weird pathways around and under and over the fact that they are worth something until something steps in and just makes you drive through it. She said from no experience whatsoever. He touched Chu Waning's face. Even if Shizun had received the flower instead, you wouldn't have become an evil tyrant like me. You wouldn't have been exploited, and you would have never been punished by Tianyin Pavilion. Mo Run laughed, soft and husky. Soothingly, he rubbed his forehead against Chu Waning's. I didn't take your place. There's no point thinking about these what-ifs. Let's go inside and sleep. No, let me sit your ass down in the snow and tell you a couple things. Chu Waning, where are you? I understand he's a little overwhelmed right now. But man, let's go. They returned to the cabin, and Mo Run held him on the narrow bed. That inevitable moment loomed closer, impossible to avoid. Mo Run's awareness had begun to fray, and the ache in his heart grew increasingly unbearable. These final moments of lucidity wouldn't last long. It had been like this, too, when his mother had died. He knew he didn't have much time. Did he? Because he seems to know a lot of things that are incorrect. He lowered his dense lashes. The fire in the stove no longer blazed as intensely as before. In its faded yellow light, his youthful, handsome face looked surpassingly gentle. This stupid man had glimpsed the grief in Chu Waning's eyes. He pushed down his own discomfort and grinned. Does it look good? Chu Waning blinked, caught off guard. What? The scar, said Mo Run. A man doesn't have any personality without some scars. Chu Waning was silent for a beat. Then he lifted his hand and slapped Mo Run across the face. But the slap had no power behind it, softening almost instantly into a caress. The last of Chu Waning's composure seemed to crumble. He buried his face in Mo Run's warm chest. Though he didn't make a sound, his shoulders shook. Chu Waning knew the truth all too well. Mo Run first froze, then put an arm around him. He kissed his temple and his hair. Must be ugly. After all he'd been through, Mo Run was more tender than ever. He sighed softly. Ugly enough to make Waning cry. It would be one thing if he called him Shizun. But when he said Waning, those two lifetimes wove together. Within the blankets, Chu Wanning embraced Mo Run, embraced this body that was blazing with life. He'd always disliked voicing strong emotions. He found it too embarrassing. But now, he felt how ridiculous his stiff bashfulness had been. How absurd. As their limbs entwined beneath the blankets on their tiny bed, within this spare, empty cabin in the whirling snowstorm, Chu Wanning said softly, "How could it be ugly? It doesn't matter whether you have any scars. You'll always be very handsome." Movran blinked. He'd never heard Chu Wanning express himself so directly, not even when they'd confessed their feelings atop his sword. The room was lit only by the fire's dying embers. Their light was mellow, a gentleness and peace arriving in the twilight hours of his life. "In the past lifetime, in this lifetime, I've always loved you. I've always wanted to be with you. And in the future, too." We haven't stopped holding hands. I don't know what you're doing. Morun listened as Chu Wanning spoke in his arms. He couldn't see his face, but he could imagine how he must look. The rims of his eyes were most likely red, and the tips of his ears, too. "In the past, I knew you'd been cursed, but I couldn't show it. I had to hate you. Now, I can finally make it up to you." Chu Wanning's cheeks were burning, and his eyes were wet. "I love you. I'd tie my hair with yours. I'd split my souls for you. I'd surrender myself to you." At hearing Chu Wanning express his willingness to surrender, Moran's heart burned like it had been singed with fire. A shudder ran through him. He was both stricken and sorrowful, pained and deeply moved. "Shizun," he murmured, voice faltering. Chu Wanning raised a hand. "Let me finish." A long moment passed. Chu Wanning was still terrible at expressing his love in words. "I don't know, he's doing a pretty fucking good job." He thought of many things, but nothing seemed right. Nothing seemed enough. He really wanted to say, "I'm sorry for letting you suffer. Your burdens were too heavy." He wanted to say, "In the past life, I was never able to tell you the truth. I'm the one who let you down." And also, "Thank you for protecting me at the Red Lotus Pavilion all those years ago." He had half a mind to cast all his dignity aside, to sob at Mo Run, to embrace his still warm body and say, "Please don't go. Please don't leave me." But there was a lump in his throat and an acrid bitterness in his heart. Can't take it. Can't. The one fucking time I don't bring a second goddamn bottle. The way every single time I consume a story with romance, every single time the romance happens and I don't know what to do with myself. It's like unexpected somehow. Listen, I don't know. I didn't say it made sense. I said that's what I do. At last, Chu Wanning lowered his head and kissed the wound on Mo Run's chest. Lashes quivering, voice hoarse, he said, Mo Run, it doesn't matter what happened in the past, or what will happen in the future. No matter what, I'll always be with you. All the blood in his body seemed to boil with embarrassment, but his words were ever so somber. All this time, I've belonged to Taishan Jin, and I've belonged to Mo Zongshe. Sorry, you'll see what I mean. Hold, please. It was too hot. Mo Run felt like a flame from another world had ignited in his chest. Fireworks seemed to explode before his eyes, and all his pain and grief to instantly recede. The next time I haven't said the line out loud yet. I will in a second. Just hang on. The next time this book references Chu Wanning as not knowing how to be romantic, I don't know what we're going to take a shot of, but we're going to take a shot of something. Because the sheer absurdity of the statement. For 2 lifetimes, I've been yours. No regrets. Mo Run closed his eyes, his tears spilling over his lashes. At last, he kissed Chu Wanning on the lips. Shizun, he sighed. Thank you. The snow came down faster, and the night grew darker. They held each other, ready to sleep, both thinking, so this is the rest of our lives. Mo Run could feel that the front of his robes was soaked with tears, but he didn't mention it. Since he was little, he'd always hoped the last chapter of his life would be full of happiness. It was supposed to be a time of cheer, he'd thought. Settling Chu Wanning in his arms, he said, Go to sleep, Wanning. Go ahead. I'll hold you. You don't like the cold, so I'll keep you warm. Once I'm better, we'll go back to Xisheng Peak. I want to apologize properly with Auntie and Uncle. I want to squabble with Shui Meng again. There are so many things we still have to do. Mo Run stroked Chu Wanning's hair, his voice very soft. He tasted iron at the back of his throat, and his breaths were becoming slow and labored. But he was still smiling, his expression still tranquil. Shizun, I'll hold an umbrella over you for a lifetime. Chu Wanning was too choked up to speak. Shia Sidi. Shia Shidi. I'm way too far gone. Even though he could barely get the words out, Mo Run was still teasing him. Shiga has a story for you. Every night from now on, I'll tell you a story. Don't get mad at me for being bad with words. Ox eats grass is still the only one I know. Mo Run looked up, gazing at the crystalline mantle of snow on the window. The whole world was an expanse of pristine white. Wanning. Mo Run's heartbeat echoed in Chu Wanning's ears as he lay in his embrace. I love you, always and forever, he murmured. Gradually, his eyes drifted shut, his dimples like 2 shallow pools of pear blossom white. His heart slowed, bit by bit, its beat unsteady. Outside the window, a bough from the plum tree snapped, weighed down by too much snow. The branch fell in a flurry of white, emitting a crisp crack. When the noise settled, Chuaning could no longer hear Mo-Run's heartbeat. He waited, the moment stretching on and on. But there was nothing. No sound. Nothing at all. It was bone-chillingly quiet. A dreadful silence. It was done. Finished. Over. The room was terrifyingly still. A long time passed, but Chuaning did not move. He was still lying in bed, still in Mo-Run's embrace. He didn't get up, raise his head, or say anything more. His little disciple, his Mo-Shishong, his Taishun-jin, wanted him to sleep well. He said he was going to hold an umbrella over him for a lifetime, tell him a bedtime story every night. Love him for the rest of his life. Mo-Run had said, "It's cold outside. It's snowing hard. I'll keep you warm." So Chuaning curled up in his arms, against that chest where warmth still lingered. He didn't move a muscle. Tomorrow they would set out for home. He and Mo-Run needed to get a proper night's rest. He wrapped an arm around Mo-Run's waist. "Okay. I'll listen to you. I'll sleep," he said into the darkness. "But tomorrow when I call your name, you'd better wake up." He pressed his cheek to the chest that would never again rise or fall, his hot tears soaking into Mo-Run's robes. "Don't laze around in bed." In his head. "Good night, Mo-Run." "The night is long, but I'll stay with you. May you have sweet dreams with fire and light." "And a home." That's the end of the chapter. We're on page 161 for chapter 280, which is called Disputes of Good and Evil. It's thankfully, blissfully, time for the break. So I'm gonna go get another bottle. And you'll hang out in the break room. And when I come back, maybe I'll set my chair on fire. I don't know. Stay tuned. We're back. We are on page 161 for chapter 280, which is called Disputes of Good and Evil. Oh, wait. As I drop things. The important part. Can't forget that. Now we're on chapter 280. The next morning, sunlight scattered into the room through the window. Chu Wan-ning opened his eyes. It was cozy under the covers. One person's heat was enough to keep two bodies warm. He gazed calmly at Mo-run's face. In his eyes, this was the best and most handsome man in the world. He didn't move. What kind of kanji should I make today? He wondered. Yesterday's kanji was gone. Mo-run had devoured 4 bowls like a hungry ghost, leaving nothing behind. He kissed Mo-run on the cheek. I'll make you some more, okay? The man beside him seemed to be very soundly asleep. His pitch-dark lashes fanned over his cheek, soft as cattails. Perhaps they'd flutter open in the next instant, and Mo-run would pull him over with a grin. This venerable one's hungry, he'd say. Wan-ning, go make me a bowl of kanji. Or perhaps he'd murmur to Chu Wan-ning, tender and besotted. I love all Shizin's cooking. Whatever you make is the best. But his body was cold. When Chu Wan-ning kissed his cheek, there was no warmth beneath his lips. Chu Wan-ning didn't cry. He got out of bed and smoothed the blankets over Mo-run. Then he went out into the yard to get more firewood and lit the stove. Dutifully, he prepared and cooked the kanji. The water reached a boil, sending up a great cloud of steam. The rice burbled and danced, tiny bubbles darting upward. He skimmed off the foam with a spoon and added salt, then covered the pot with a wooden lid to let it simmer. Chu Wan-ning stood before the stove, his mind a vast blank. In one fleeting moment of clarity, it occurred to him that a person who'd already been reborn couldn't be brought back to life a second time using the rebirth technique. I'm going to try to not be too devastated to articulate this. But if we're genuinely going for a Chu Wan-ning Tish Jun plot twist endgame, as in Mo-run will not be plot twist returning, I don't know if I would so deeply respect it or personally hunt her down for what she will have done to me emotionally. I don't know. We'd have to get there. That single thought was nearly enough to break him. He hastily willed his fingers to stop trembling, then reached up to take the lid off the pot. If he made kanji, it would definitely be eaten. He had all those fragments of Mo-run's memories. Mo-run had been penniless in his childhood. He'd never had enough to eat. A single steaming pancake was enough to make his day. Mo-Run wouldn't let kanji go to waste. He'd wake up. The kanji was soon ready. Chuaning went out to the yard to sweep away some of the snow, then broke off another branch of wintersweet. Once inside, he trimmed its end and placed it in a small pot of dirt. The fragrance of the blossoms carried for miles. This way, the smell of the mortal realm could accompany Mo-Run on his journey. No, he was getting confused again. What journey? What smell of the mortal realm? Mo-Run was lying here perfectly fine, the same as yesterday and the day before and the day before that. It was only that his face was a little gaunter today, his complexion a shade paler. But he would still wake up. I'm dropping things. Over 2 lifetimes, from the moment they'd met, Mo-Run had never left him of his own accord, no matter if they'd been loathing and spiteful or loving and compassionate. Mo-Run had gradually permeated his life, becoming the wind, the passing hours, the water flowing through his fingers, the veil of light on his hair. He was his sun and moon, his dawn and dusk. He was his world entire. Chuaning was still slowly making his way through this world. Here the snow would still fall, and the cicadas would still sing. The lotuses would die in the autumn, and the flowers would flourish in the summer. Everything would remain as it was, so how could Mo-Run possibly leave? Chuaning would watch over him, stay with him, each and every day, waiting for him to wake. As fate would have it, just as Mo-Run had once linked Chuaning's body to his own in the past life, in this lifetime Chuaning would follow in Taishan-Jun's footsteps. Back then, Mo-Run had stood in the Red Lotus Pavilion, clad head to toe in black. "Only on the day I die are you allowed to leave this world," he'd said to Chuaning in his everlasting slumber. "Stay with me." Now, deep in Nanping Valley, the figure of Chuaning in his white robes seemed to meld with the figure of that bygone emperor. He reached out, touching Mo-Run's bloodless face. "Stay with me." With a flash of golden light, his spiritual energy flowed into Mo-Run's body. No matter what transpired in heaven or hell or the mortal realm, as long as Chuaning yet remained upon this earth, Mo-Yu's body would not decay. He would only truly perish if, many years from now, Chuaning passed away, and that supply of spiritual energy was snuffed out. Then they would turn to dust, to ash, scattering on the wind and vanishing into the dirt. That's a footnote. That's a quote from the poem Ode to the Plum Blossom by the Song Dynasty poet Lu Yu. They would leave together. Within the temple of Tianyin Pavilion, the fires blazed, casting sinuous shadows over the walls. I guess it was. Was that a scene break? It was. Sorry, it came at the end of one page and the start of another, so it wasn't readily apparent. You have got to be fucking kidding me. Hang on. Within the temple of Tianyin Pavilion, the fires blazed, casting sinuous shadows over the walls. Mu Yan Li stood alone in the middle of the hall, eyes closed, hand clasped behind her back. The doors open, and a figure strode into the hall. Mu Yan Li didn't turn. "You're here?" she asked, affectless. I think that was affectless. "I am." The newcomer lowered his hood to reveal a face of such beauty it could topple nations. Shimei. That needle was still fucking moving. "Mujija, would you like to take a look at the rear hall?" There's not much to see, said Mu Yunli. You're just cutting someone open and peeling them apart. It stinks of blood. I can't stand it. I'm afraid there's no way around that. All part of the medicine master's vacation, Shimei replied with a smile. The room wouldn't smell like fresh flowers even if Guye's Jiangxi were wielding the knife. Mu Yunli knit her brows. She had no desire to talk more of surgeries and the like, and instead asked, Be that as it may, you've been working on the spell for several days now. When is Taishanjun going to be fully reborn? He won't quite be reborn. He only has a cognizant soul. He'll still be a revenant at best. Mu Yunli's lovely eyes narrowed and flicked to the side. A revenant is all we need. The more obedient, the better. She paused. What about those spiritual core fragments? Were they of any use? They were. Though incomplete, they're still extremely powerful, Shimei replied. Mo-Run's talent for cultivation is truly unsurpassed. He can clear the way for us. Mu Yunli sighed. There'll be no mishaps this time, I hope. It's too early to say, said Shimei. I'm in the middle of repairing the spiritual core in Taishanjun's body. It'll take another 10 days at least. During this time, I was hoping that Mujija could do 2 things for me. Go on. First, as soon as Taishanjun recovers, we'll complete the major undertaking we discussed. No matter how stupid these cultivators are, they'll eventually realize everything Mo-Run said was true. They'll probably band together to try and stop us. Shimei hesitated. They're largely incompetent, but it'll become a headache if there are enough of them. And so? The upper cultivation realm has plenty of firepower, but they lack experience. Xisheng Peak will be the key. I hope Mujija will sow a few rumors to drive a wedge between Xisheng Peak and the other sects. We'll bring Xisheng Peak down first. Chu Wanning abducted a prisoner and Mo Weiyu escaped, said Mu Yunli. Both of them are from Xisheng Peak, so it won't be hard to stir public sentiment against them. They've already become the target of criticism. Many were calling for the sect to be dissolved. This is a simple matter. What's the second thing? Second, Shimei heaved a sigh, almost rueful. There's a man I'd like you to kill for me. Who? Myself. Mu Yunli whipped around to stare at him. Shimei's gentle features were bright in the firelight. The version of you from this world? Are you mad? How can you ask this? No matter what, he's still... She fell silent. Shimei had raised his feathery lashes to reveal the dark eyes beneath, seething with murderous intent. He's still me, Shimei laughed. You're not wrong. But he's a traitor. Mu Yunli said nothing. If he hadn't set Chu Wanning free, would anyone have stolen Mo-Run from Tianyin Pavilion? When Mu Yunli still didn't answer, he continued. If he hadn't interfered with Taishanjun, would Chu Wanning have been able to abscond with Mo-Run while he was half dead? His eyes glinted, cold and forbidding. How lucky he learned some techniques behind my back. He covered his tracks pretty well for a blind man. He fled so fast he didn't leave me a chance to hack him to pieces. I know what was wrong of him, Mu Yunli said, unable to remain silent any longer. But he's still a member of our clan. He and I are the same person. When these 2 worlds become one of me will be enough. I still can't help but think that just joining the 2 timelines serves what? Like, that's a task. What's like the... Shimei ascended the steps and came to stand next to Mu Yunli. Your other self died of an illness in the past lifetime, but having this world's Mujija helping me is just as good. But it's not as if you have no choice but to kill him. Our people have suffered enough. Mu Yunli stared at Shimei, fretful. Anan, we made a promise. If someone is of our clan, we have to work together and help them. We can't sink to killing our own. What? the fuck is happening? Shimei shifted his gaze to the leaping flames. After a long silence, he replied, "When we were on Mount Jiao, I thought the same. I've doubted plenty of people, but I never doubted him. Yet that only gave him an opportunity to turn against me. We two aren't the same anymore," Shimei said calmly. "I'm still Hua Binan and Xu Jing." He closed his eyes and sighed. "But what about him? He only remembers that he's Xu Jing. He's forgotten Hua Binan." The fire sputtered, orange sparks spraying into the air. Mu Yanli shook her head. "I can't do what you ask. He's already lost his eyes for our sake. We won't take him in again, but Chu Wanning and the others won't accept him either. He has nowhere to go. His hands are tied. Why are you in such a rush to get rid of him? Because he betrayed you, or because he chose a different path from you in the end?" Shimei didn't answer right away. After a moment, he smiled. "You've always been ruthless and decisive. Why have you suddenly gone soft?" Mu Yanli's head jerked up, her eyes glittering with pain. "Because he's also my little brother. He's also you." Did did you see? I didn't see. What? Sib what brother it's what? Qua? What? Sibling? We wait wait. What? What? Uh so like who are these people? She's speaking to some larger group. Clan? Did she use the word clan? So like clan or family? Clearly your family's part of the clan. So like are we this goes mom? What about mom? What? Also, why the name? Fake name, I'm assuming. Or something. This flash of human emotion seemed to thaw the ice in her eyes, suddenly less cold and stony than before. "Anan, it doesn't matter if it's the past or present lifetime. It doesn't matter how you might change. I couldn't possibly turn against you. I can't do it." The flames shimmered in the brazier, dancing upward like streamers of red silk. Shimei sighed again. "Forget it. This is a personal matter anyway. If you don't want to do it, I'll let it go. But the first task is of utmost importance. I asked Mujija to tend to it diligently." Mu Yanli closed her eyes. The evening bell began to toll, its sober peals echoing from the top of the pavilion. The bell had hung there since the founding of Tianyan Pavilion thousands of years ago, and its sound was as majestic as ever. Amidst its lingering tones, Mu Yanli said slowly, "I understand. Don't worry." What the fuck is going on at Tianyan Pavilion? That's a scene break. The night after the conversation in Tianyan Pavilion, several people were murdered in quick succession at Baton Manor in the upper cultivation realm. Before the case could be investigated, Huang Pavilion, Wubei Temple, and Guyueya were similarly struck. An isolated act of terror quickly became a widespread phenomenon. Soon, everyone realized what connected these crimes. Genlong chess pieces. There were chess pieces everywhere, in small villages and towns, in big cities and great sects. No place seemed to be accepted. These mindless pawns grew more and more numerous, killing people and torching buildings everywhere. All the cultivation realms' sects had their hands full, and none had energy to spare for the commoners. Day after day, the rivers ran red with blood, and cities turned to ghost towns. The scale of the destruction far exceeded that of any heavenly rift. No one was sure who was behind the violence, or how to bring an end to the massacres. A great many cultivators suspected that Chuaning and Mo Run, whose whereabouts were unknown, must somehow be the perpetrators of these acts of terrors. Others, however, remained doubtful. One remarked, "I have no problem believing Mo Run's behind all this trouble, but why would Chuaning help him? Who knows, maybe he wants a piece of the pie." "I doubt it's that simple," someone else piped up. "You all saw what happened at the sentencing grounds. Would those two have been so distraught if they were just an ordinary master and disciple? If you ask me, Chuaning and Mo Run's relationship is far from normal." What do you mean?" "I mean they're cut sleeves. That teacher is definitely sleeping with his student." The words that passed their lips were unsparingly slanderous and obscene. Astonishment and revulsion appeared on the faces of the whole group. "Surely not," someone muttered. "He's the Beidou immortal." "Don't forget, when Chuaning died after repairing that heavenly rift, wasn't Mo Run the one who made the dangerous journey into the underworld to save him? Everyone says they have a deep master-disciple bond, but he could have died doing that. If it were you, would you be willing to do it?" Everyone fell silent. One of the bean pods roasting over the fire burst, emitting a sharp pop. "And there was that time on Mount Jiao. Did you hear about that? Before Shiming-Jing was abducted, there was something he said." "What did he say?" "I can't remember the exact words. It was a tense situation. Most of us didn't think much of it at the time. But looking back, it seemed like he was implying something." Someone countered with a scowl. "But I heard Shiming-Jing is actually Hua Binan. Can we trust anything he said?" "Bullshit!" Everyone jumped at this angry shout. They turned to see a man with eyes bulging in fury. "Don't tell me you actually believe that. Mo Run was clearly just trying to drag Shiming-Jing's name through the mud." "Li Xiang, why are you so worked up about this?" "How could I not be?" the man retorted. "Shiming-Jing saved my life." "Oh. I was at Mount Jiao too, you know. Hua Binan used goo insects on us called heart tunnelers. If it weren't for Shiming-Jing undoing the spell with optomancy, I would have died up there. If my savior was actually Hua Binan, why would he go to the trouble of lifting our curses?" The burly man grew increasingly agitated as he spoke, until his eyes were damp with tears. "He saved us, but what did that get him? Hua Binan blinded him. He could be dead for all we know, yet he's still getting slandered by Mo Run. I'm outraged on his behalf." The man broke down into raucous sobs. The others in the temple didn't know what to do. They all exchanged glances. On one side was Shiming-Jing and Tianyin Pavilion, on the other Mo Weiyu and Chuaning. Both had cause for others to doubt them, but the second was far more suspicious. A lady cultivator gazing into the spitting flames was next to speak up quietly. "Actually, I was part of the group that confronted Xu Shuanglin at Mount Jiao too. I saw how both Shiming-Jing and Mo Run acted that day. In my eyes, neither seemed like bad people. But surely between the two of them, one of them must be lying." The lady cultivator shook her head. "It's not for me to say who's lying. I don't want to make false accusations. But I will mention something I saw with my own eyes." All eyes in the temple turned to her in curiosity. Slightly embarrassed, she cleared her throat. "At the time, everyone was injured, and Mo Run and Chuaning weren't in great shape either. They were sitting off to the side, resting. I happened to glance over when Mo Run sneakily reached out and touched Chuaning's face." I now understand a pyromaniac's deep need to set something on fire. That was the end of the chapter, by the way. We're on page 171 for chapter 281. Which is called I Wish to Do More Good. Many of the older members of the group couldn't bear the thought of any whiff of impropriety between a student and a teacher. They covered their mouths with their sleeves and scowled. What a travesty! The lady cultivator cupped her tea in her hands and spoke without raising her head. At the time, it surprised me. I found it bizarre, but both of them were such well-known zongsha. I didn't dare presume anything untoward was going on between them. In hindsight, though, there really was something off. She paused before continuing. And someone already mentioned the other thing, what Chimay said before he was taken away. His words were vague. I only thought they were a little strange and didn't dwell on it. But thinking back on it now, he probably meant Mo-Run once had feelings for him, but later Mo-Run had a change of heart and fell in love with Chu Wan-ning. Everyone fell silent. Many details they'd overlooked before suddenly stood out starkly. Were you all there when Mo-Run was taken from Tianyin Pavilion? Someone said softly. When Chu Wan-ning was holding him, I think I saw him kiss him on the forehead. Are we gossiping or are we shipping it? Like, be honest. Faceless mob. The more scandalous the detail, the more curious people were about it. Oh, someone else exclaimed. Wait, who kissed who? Scratching his head, the first speaker answered. Chu Wan-ning kissed Mo-Run. Silence. None of you saw it? One by one, the others shook their heads. The speaker threw up his hands. Fine, pretend I didn't say anything. Maybe I was just seeing things. But pretend I didn't say anything was a useless admonition, having the same effect as, I'm not sure if I should be telling you this. Once the words were out in the world, could they really be taken back? The cultivator's scorn compounded. If a master and disciple were romantically involved, it might be slightly more tolerable if the disciple had been the one to take the lead. If the master was the instigator, such an affair was grossly taboo. It would be natural to conclude that the teacher in question had the worst kind of intentions, and no honor to speak of. These sorts of private debates and conjectures weren't limited to this abandoned temple. As the two foremost suspects behind the recent turmoil, the subject of Mo-Run and Chu Wan-ning quickly became a hot topic of conversation across the land. As the saying went, bad news traveled 1,000 miles before good news made it out the door. Talk of a pious student and a kind teacher was the sort of thing to put people to sleep, but rumors of an illicit affair between a disciple and his master, that would draw all the eyes around the dinner table to the loudmouth in their midst. Although there were many who doubted the rumors and plenty who didn't approve of such talk, this salacious piece of gossip spread far and wide. Wasn't one of Mu Yanli's job to basically do this? In no time, all sorts of speculations arose. Some said Mo-Run had slept his way to the top, that Shui Meng and Chu Wan-ning were also involved, that Chimay and Chu Wan-ning had probably done it too, and so on and so forth, until the originally pristine Beidou immortal became a dirty old man who lived to take advantage of the handsome youngsters under his tutelage. It had always been the case that the court of public opinion could bury the truth, and that the tongue was often sharper than the sword. Just look at his disciples. Aren't all three of them way too handsome? I can't think of a single innocent reason for it. When Mo-Run first joined the sect, Chu Wan-ning didn't want to take him as his disciple, right? My friend in Xishang Peak told me after Mo-Run spent the night in the Red Lotus Pavilion, Chu Wan-ning changed his mind. Why? Well, now we know. Clearly Mo-Run was just that good in bed. Each titillating detail made listeners itch to jump in with their own opinions. Hadn't Mo-Run just barely come of age at that point? Chu Wan-ning really has no scruples, huh? Now I understand why that girl was beaten half to death for peeping at him in the bath back then. She probably saw something she wasn't supposed to. After a few suggestive moments of silence, a local ruffian chimed in with a roguish grin. Hey, I just want to know what you guys think. When they're in bed together, who's on top and who's on the bottom? I think Mo-run's got to be on the bottom. Everyone knows Chu Wanning's temper. That man's so arrogant, he'd never ask his disciple to fuck him. When you put it like that, you have to feel a bit sorry for Mo-run. Forced into bed with a disagreeable hard ass who's so much older than him and not even that attractive. I bet it makes his skin crawl. But another kind of chatter traveled even faster. As the days wore on, several gen-long chess pieces began to be identified. All of them were disciples from Xisheng Peak. A mere one or two clues could be chalked up to coincidence, but every single piece of evidence now pointed squarely to Xisheng Peak. No matter how unimpeachable its reputation had once been, the sect inevitably became the target of public condemnation. Panic ensued. Over several days, people came to Xisheng Peak in an attempt to get answers, but all were turned away at the gates. Shui Zhengmin isn't here. Come back in a few days if it's important. Where's Shui Jingyang? Hearing the visitor use the sect leader's given name with such impunity, the little disciple at the gate lost his temper. Since the moment the trouble began, my sect leader's been running around day and night doing everything in his power to subdue those pawns. Wherever people are suffering, that's where he is. Find him yourself. The visitor, who'd only come to pick a fight, sneered. Subduing pawns? Looks to me like he's busy controlling them. He and those vermin Mo-run and Chu Wanning are all in this together. Don't be absurd. Absurd, said the visitor. Mo-run cultivated forbidden techniques and Chu Wanning stole him from Tianyin Pavilion. Before that, Shui Jingyang was begging them to let Mo-run off, and Zhenlong pawns made out of Xisheng Peak disciples have been popping up everywhere. Only an idiot would believe your sect is blameless. Later, Shui Jingyang listened to reports of these errant troublemakers with a weary sigh. Those who are truly innocent don't need to defend themselves. Considering the state of things, it'll be a blessing just to finish the work that's been cut out for me. Don't pay them any mind. Just send them away. Yet on this day, more people had come to the gates than usual. This time, they'd brought several bodies with them, demanding Xisheng Peak pay the price for their deaths. It was late at night by the time Shui Jingyang returned home, covered in blood and injuries. He listened to Madame Wang's tale while washing the dirt from his face, then took a deep breath, pondering in silence. We can't let things go on like this, said Madame Wang. I wonder if we should go to Tianyin Pavilion and ask for assistance. Ask Tianyin Pavilion? Shui Jingyang narrowed his eyes in scorn. A long scratch ran down his cheek, the work of an undead corpse. There's something shady about Tianyin Pavilion. That Mu Yunli stands there like an empty-headed Buddha sculpture, good for absolutely nothing. Madame Wang clapped her hand over his mouth. Don't say things like that. Shui Jingyang blinked at her. I know you're upset, Madame Wang sighed, moving her hand to his cheek. But what can we do? They're the descendants of heaven, an ancient order established by the gods. They've always been mighty. Even during the crisis of King Ping 300 years ago, no one dared to question them. What power do you have to change this? Oh, God. Sorry. Hi. I wasn't prepared for Daddy Jingyang. Hold on. Ooh, oh my. All right. Now I see why we're why we're generally whooping and hollering and catcalling whenever Shui Daddy pops up. I mean, did you have to be so? All right. You know what? I'm not going to argue. I'm saying absolutely nothing. Not a word, not a thought, not a syllable. Shui Jingyang's eyes flashed with anger. It's legitimately distracting, having the art on the page. He looked as if he had something to say, but was biting it back. In the end, he tossed away the towel he was using to clean his wounds and walked over to the window, where he stood with his hands folded behind him, gazing at the sickle moon outside. Still shirtless? These are the important details, you know. At long last, he spoke in a hoarse voice. Do you think Ron Air is doing okay? Gathering her long skirts, Madame Wang came to stand beside him. Husband. Moonlight spilled over Shui Jingyong's face. He seemed so weary, even aged, without his usual smile. Even though he's not my brother's real son. Even though he killed my nephew all these years. You know what I mean? All these years I thought of him as... I know. You don't have to say any more. I know. Madame Wang's eyes stung too. I feel the same. Shui Jingyong buried his face in his hands, scrubbing mournfully. Suddenly he doubled over and began coughing as if he couldn't stop. When he finally brought his hand away from his mouth, it was red with blood. Madame Wang looked at him in horror. How did you get hurt so badly? Quick, lie down and let me take a look. There's not much to see. Shui Jingyong wiped the blood from his lips with a handkerchief. Just a minor internal injury. I'll be fine in a few days. Don't say that shit, okay? Don't leave the house tomorrow. Look at all the other sect leaders. Which of them insists on doing everything themselves? Shui Jingyong's face twisted in an attempt at a smile, but he was so exhausted, it sagged again after only a second. We still don't know where Ron-Er and Yu-Hong are, and there's been trouble all over the cultivation realm. 9 people died just at the foot of the mountain the other day in Wuchang Town. You want to keep me home now, of all times? Madame Wang gazed at him with those beautiful eyes. Shui Jingyong patted her head. You know me. There's no way I can stay cooped up here. But surely you should take a day off at least. Madame Wang bit her lip. You've just coughed up blood. You can't ignore this injury. Have you forgotten how your brother met his end? The last valiant hint of a smile vanished from Shui Jingyong's face. He glimpsed a faint, liquid glimmer beneath Madame Wang's lowered lashes, and his heart twinged. Don't cry. You know me. I'll be right as rain in no time. All right, I'll stay in the sect tomorrow. I won't go anywhere, okay? I'll rest a whole day before I leave again. How about that? Buckles at the thought of his wife getting emotional. I won't force you, Madame Wang said, voice thick with tears. I can't make you listen to me anyway. You can go wherever you'd like. It could be haha feminine wiles or haha classic traditional kind of low-key toxic manipulative feminine wiles. You know the ones. How could I? Shui Jingyong forced out a bitter laugh. There now, don't worry. Look, how many years has it been? Haven't I weathered all these storms just fine? Trust me, I'll be good as new. I just need a little time. Shui Jingyong was true to his word. He didn't leave the gates the next day. But neither did he remain idle. He went to the library to think, considering their present predicament from every angle. Sect leader, the young master has prepared some medicine for you. Drink it while it's hot. You can put it down here, thanks, Shui Jingyong said absently. He was in deep thought and not in the mood to get up and leave. He worked well into the afternoon. Only when his injured ribs began to ache did he remember to slowly drink the medicine, which had long gone cold. As he left the library, Shui Jingyong turned to the disciple guarding the door. Where are my wifey and Shui Meng? The young master just returned from the foot of the mountain. The madam is lighting incense and praying at the temple. Shall I call them over? Shui Jingyong had wanted to rest a moment and talk with them, but before he could reply, the world spun around him. He really was getting old. He couldn't recover from an injury with just a good night's sleep like he had in his 20s. Even he had no choice but to submit to time's passage. That's all right. Don't bother with them. Shui Jingyong managed to smile through the ache. I'll go sit in the meditation room for a while. Come get me if anything comes up. Yes, sect leader. Was something in the fucking medicine? Shui Jingyong clapped the disciple on the shoulder. His mood was bleak. He'd seen far too much strife lately. Looking at this little disciple before him, he couldn't help an internal sigh. How precious were these flourishing days of youth. In his mind, there was no higher goal than bettering the days of these youngsters. All right, I'm off. Would you mind organizing the books? Before he could complete the request, another disciple rushed into the library. The instant they caught sight of Shui Jing-Young, they knelt, looking deeply stricken. Sect leader, something's wrong, the messenger cried. The commotion made Shui Jing-Young's ribs ache even more. Damn it, I should have really let Tanlong treat this sooner. His face paled slightly, but he pushed through the pain and asked, What's all this about? All the sects of the upper cultivation realm have arrived in front of Loyalty Hall, the anxious disciple replied, including their leader, Guyueya. Shui Jing-Young's heart hammered in his chest. Though he had an inkling of what this was about, still, he muttered, What could they all be doing here? They said there's too much evidence implicating Xisheng Peak. They can't stand by and watch any longer, so they came personally to ask the sect leader for an explanation. The disciple was growing increasingly agitated, on the verge of tears. Sect leader, they all came together. I'm afraid they want to disband the sect. Shui Jing-Yong's face went ashen. Clenching his jaw, he tapped the acupoints on his ribs. They wouldn't know the truth if it hit them in the face. What a bunch of bullies. He turned to the disciple watching over the library. Don't tell my wife about this just yet. I don't want to worry her. Yes, sect leader. Shui Jing-Yong helped the trembling messenger disciple up from the floor. His voice was grave. Come with me to the front hall. It's the end of the chapter. That's all we're reading for today. If I have my chapters correct. Unless I'm about to be corrected, that's all we're reading for today. Yeah? Yeah. Thank you, love. Next time, on Thursday, we'll be on page 181 for chapter 282. Don't worry, the chapter's called A Lone Wolf Backed into a Corner. What could possibly go wrong? Well, we're not going back to the underworld. No point. We can't. Unless something else comes up. We can't. We can't do Rebirth again, folks. We're going to have to do something else. Unless she's literally building to a Chuaning Teishanjin thing. Which would be utterly fucking wild to do, considering we've spent the whole series with Morun and Chuaning. And I realize that it's kind of hair splitty, considering, you know, everything. But still would be an absolutely fucking insane thing to do. I'm going to assume that we're going to get Morun back somehow. I would assume that before I would assume that we are now headed towards a Tish-Jun and Chuaning endgame scenario. Somebody mentioned blending. There might be a combo of the two. Like, I don't know if we put something over with the pieces of core. I don't know. But that's also an option. That's the secret third thing, is that they finally fuse into the same. Actually, now that I'm saying it out loud, that would probably be my first guess. To be honest. That we're going to end with Tae-Shun and Morun fully integrated, one might say. That would make sense. That's my first guess. Second guess, Morun comes back somehow. Via whatever, what have you, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, kind of thing. Third guess would be Tae-Shun Chuaning endgame of some sort. And she's going to spend the next 2.5 volumes circling us around that reality. But who knows? Who can say? I sure as shit can't. I wasn't thinking he was about to die. I was thoroughly caught unaware, which seems funny, but I thought similarly to how he was like, oh yeah, I remember that it was a flower, but that just exacerbated my already shit soul. So really, I thought it was sort of like that approach. He was like, I'm not long for this world. And I'm like, babe, you don't know the half of it. So, you know, in hindsight, maybe it was just bone deep fucking denial, but that's really what I was thinking. Like, legit, right up until the moment where he stopped breathing, I thought he was going to stay alive long enough to get to Seashun Peak and they'd figure out something to do. That's how plot stupid I can go sometimes. Alambria has a great idea. She said, like the video if you cried today. Hey, yeah. Thank you for tuning into the stream today. Like the video if you had a time. Subscribe if you haven't. I go live on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3 p.m. to read really fucking sad gay shit from China. At 2:15 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we have a book chat with YouTube members and patrons to talk about the really sad gay shit that we read from China. Or whatever we happen to be reading. So, that's happening as well. There's that evergreen link down to the public Gaywatch Discord. If you feel like, screaming, ranting, raving, and crying in a chat room about the super sad gay shit from China. And, yeah. That's it for today. I am gonna go. Thankfully, I have to leave my house today. I have to go pick up my ADHD meds. So maybe while I'm outside, I'll take a few million deep breaths and possibly, maybe, be prepared to read on Thursday. I love you all very much. Please, look at me. Please remember to take care of yourself. And I'll see you on Thursday for more Erha. Okay? All right.